Jake Morrison floated outside the ship, his gloved hands working carefully on the damaged solar panel. Space was silent around him, filled with stars that looked like tiny diamonds scattered across black velvet. He had been an engineer on the Wanderer for 6 months now, and he loved these quiet moments outside the ship. The work was simple, peaceful, and didn't require talking to anyone. "Jake, how's it going out there?" Captain Lisa Grant's voice crackled in his helmet. "Almost done, Captain," Jake replied. "Just need another 10 minutes. He didn't notice the small object drifting toward him at first. It was his friend Ben who spotted it from inside the ship. "Jake, there's something coming your way," Ben said urgently. "Looks like a pod or something. It's damaged and leaking air." Jake turned and saw it. The pod was small, maybe big enough for one person, and it was spinning slowly. Parts of it were blackened and broken. Whoever was inside didn't have much time. "Captain, I see it," Jake said. "Someone might be in there." "Don't do anything stupid, Jake," the captain warned. "We don't know what that is," but Jake was already moving. He pushed off from the ship and used his suit's small thrusters to reach the pod. His heart pounded as he got closer. Through a small window, he could see someone inside. They weren't moving. He grabbed the pod and started pulling it back toward the Wanderer. It was heavier than he expected, and his air supply was getting low. His arms burned with effort, but he kept going. When he finally got the pod to the airlock, he was breathing hard. "Got it," he gasped. "Opening it now." The airlock filled with air, and Jake carefully opened the pod. Inside was a woman, but she wasn't human. Her skin was pale blue, and her hair was silver and long. She wore strange armor that looked both beautiful and deadly. Her eyes were closed, and for a moment Jake thought she might be dead. Then she coughed and opened her eyes. They were violet, like purple gems. She stared at Jake in confusion and fear. "It's okay," Jake said softly, holding up his hands. "You're safe now." She didn't understand his words, but something in his voice seemed to calm her. She tried to sit up, and Jake helped her. She was taller than him, even sitting down. She touched her armor, checking for damage, then looked at Jake again. She said something in a language he couldn't understand. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes. "I don't understand," Jake said, "but we'll figure it out. Can you walk?" He helped her stand, and they made their way to the medical bay. The whole crew was staring when they entered. Nobody had ever seen an alien before. Dr. Ben Collins rushed forward with his scanner, his eyes wide with excitement. "This is amazing," Ben whispered. "First contact. We're making first contact." The alien woman looked around nervously. She was studying everything, everyone. When Lieutenant Amy Ross stepped forward with her hand on her weapon, the woman tensed, ready to fight. "Easy," Jake said to both of them. "Everyone just stay calm." Captain Grant entered the medical bay, her face serious. "Jake, what have you brought us?" "Someone who needed help, Captain," Jake replied simply. Before anyone could say more, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Amy ran to a console and her face went pale. "Captain, we have multiple ships approaching. Big ones, really big ones." Everyone rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, they could see enormous vessels emerging from what looked like ripples in space. The ships were beautiful, covered in silver and gold patterns that seemed to glow. There were at least 20 of them, and each one was 10 times the size of the Wanderer. "This is Captain Lisa Grant of the Earth vessel Wanderer," the captain said into the communication system. "We mean no harm." There was a long silence. Then a voice replied, speaking perfect English but with an accent that sounded like singing. "You have taken Princess Zara Elin, third daughter of the Valorian Emperor. Return her immediately." Everyone turned to look at the alien woman. She was standing straight now, looking more like a warrior than someone who had just been rescued. She said something sharp and pointed at the screen. "We didn't take her," Captain Grant said carefully. "We rescued her. Her pod was damaged. That changes nothing. Prepare to be boarded." The communication cut off. Jake saw that the alien woman, Princess Zara, was watching him. She walked over slowly and placed her hand on his chest right over his heart. She said something, and even though he couldn't understand the words, he could hear the gratitude in her voice. Then things happened very fast. A bright light filled the bridge, and suddenly there were 6 alien soldiers standing there. They wore armor like Zara's but heavier, and they carried weapons that hummed with energy. They surrounded the princess immediately, checking her for injuries. Zara spoke to them quickly in her language. They responded with what sounded like questions, maybe protests. She spoke again, more firmly this time. Then she turned to Jake and pointed at him. "This is my husband," she said in English, the words careful and practiced. She smiled at him. Jake's mouth fell open. The entire bridge went silent. Even the alien soldiers looked shocked. "What?" Jake managed to say. Zara's smile grew wider. She said something else in her language, and one of the soldiers pulled out a device. He spoke into it rapidly, and Jake could hear shouting coming from the other end. Captain Grant stepped forward. "There must be some misunderstanding," but Zara shook her head. She took Jake's hand in hers. Her skin was cool to the touch. She spoke in English again, slowly. "He saved my life. This creates bond. He is mine now." "I am his." "Jake?" Ben said weakly. "What did you do?" Jake looked at his friend, then at the captain, then at the princess who was still holding his hand. "I just fixed a solar panel," he said. "I was just fixing a solar panel." The alien soldier finished his conversation and looked at Jake with what might have been respect or might have been pity. "The High Council has been informed," he said in English. "The Wanderer will accompany us to the nearest diplomatic station. This matter must be resolved properly." "Are we prisoners?" Captain Grant asked. "You are honored guests," the soldier replied. "There is a difference." Zara squeezed Jake's hand gently. She was still smiling, and in her eyes he could see something that looked like mischief. Whatever was happening, she knew exactly what she was doing. Jake wished he could say the same. The Wanderer began moving, surrounded by the massive Valorian ships. Jake stood on the bridge, still holding hands with an alien princess, wondering how his simple day of repair work had turned into this. Ben patted him on the shoulder. "Well, buddy, your life just got interesting." That was an understatement. The diplomatic station was massive. Jake stared out the window as the Wanderer docked, watching other ships come and go. Some looked like the Valorian vessels, but others were completely different. He was seeing a whole universe of species he never knew existed. "Stop staring," Amy whispered beside him. "You look like a tourist." "I am a tourist," Jake whispered back. "A very confused tourist." They were in what the Valorians called a greeting chamber, which looked like a fancy hotel lobby made of crystal and light. Princess Zara stood nearby, now wearing a long dress that seemed to shimmer like water. She had been given rooms to rest, and someone had found clothes that fit the humans too. Jake now wore something that looked like a suit but felt more comfortable. A tall Valorian man entered the chamber. He wore robes covered in silver symbols, and his face was stern. "I am High Chancellor Vex," he announced. "Uncle to Princess Zara Ellen. We must discuss this unusual situation." Captain Grant stepped forward. "Chancellor, I'm sure we can resolve this misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Vex's eyes were cold. "My niece has declared a life bond with a human. This is no small matter." Zara said something sharp in her language. Vex replied, and they argued back and forth. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could tell Zara wasn't backing down. Finally, she turned to Jake and spoke in English. "I must teach you our ways," she said. "Will you walk with me?" Jake looked at Captain Grant, who nodded slightly. "Sure," he said. They left the chamber together, with two guards following at a distance. The station's corridors were beautiful, with walls that seemed to glow from within. Other aliens passed them, some staring at Jake with obvious curiosity. "I'm sorry," Zara said quietly. "I have put you in difficult position." "Can I ask you something?" Jake said. "Why did you call me your husband?" Zara was quiet for a moment. "In my culture, when someone saves your life, it creates sacred bond. But bond can be broken if both agree. I needed protection, and you needed protection." "Protection from what?" "Someone tried to kill me," Zara said simply. "The damage to my pod was not accident. There are those who do not want me to live." Jake stopped walking. "Why?" "Because I want things to change," Zara said. "My people, we have lived alone for a long time. We do not trust others. But Galaxy is big, and we are not only ones in it. I believe we should meet other species, learn from them. Some in my government do not agree. So you called me your husband to make them think twice before trying again," Zara finished. "If I am connected to humans through marriage, it creates alliance. It makes me harder to kill without causing bigger problems." Jake felt a mix of emotions. He was angry that she had used him, but he also understood. "You could have asked me." "You would have said no," Zara said, but she was smiling. "Humans value choice very much, yes? I have learned this from your ship's computer." "You've been studying us?" "Of course. You are interesting. Your people went to space even though it was dangerous. Your species does not give up even when things are hard. This is admirable. They reached a garden area inside the station. Real plants grew here, but they weren't from Earth. Some glowed softly, others moved when you walked past them. Zara sat on a bench that adjusted to her height, and Jake sat beside her. What happens now? Jake asked. Now you must prove yourself worthy of me, Zara said. This is our tradition. There will be 3 trials. If you pass them, the bond becomes official. If you fail or if you refuse to try, the bond breaks and you can go home. What kind of trials? Test of mind, body, and spirit. They are not easy, but they are fair. Jake thought about this. And if I do this, if I pass these trials, then what? We're actually married? Yes, unless you choose to break bond after 1 solar cycle. Then it ends with honor. 1 year, Jake said. You're giving me an out. I am giving us both an out, Zara corrected. I do not know you, Jake Morrison. You seem kind, but kind is not enough for lifetime. And you do not know me. Maybe you will not like me when you learn more. It was honest, at least. Jake found himself smiling. Okay, I'll do the trials. Why? Zara looked genuinely curious. Because you saved yourself by using your brain instead of weapons, Jake said. Because you're trying to change things even when it's dangerous. And because if I go home now, I'll always wonder what could have happened. Zara's smile returned. Good answer. Over the next few days, Jake learned more about Valorian culture. A woman named Lady Kira, who was Zara's friend, helped teach him. She was shorter than Zara and laughed more easily. Valorians are very serious about honor, Kira explained. We do not lie. We do not cheat. We keep our promises even when they are hard. What about love? Jake asked. Do you marry for love? Royal family marries for duty, Kira said sadly. Common people have more freedom. Zara has never had choice before. Meanwhile, Ben was having the time of his life. He had been given permission to study Valorian biology and was constantly taking notes. Did you know they have 2 hearts? He told Jake excitedly. 2! And their blood is actually copper-based, which is why it's blue instead of red. Amy was less excited. Something's not right here, she told Jake privately. Vex keeps watching Zara like he's waiting for something, and there are too many guards around for a simple diplomatic meeting. Captain Grant was dealing with human politics. A man named Commander Troy Baker had arrived from Earth's diplomatic corps, and he wasn't happy. You've potentially created an interstellar incident, he told the captain loudly enough for others to hear. My engineer saved a life, Grant replied calmly. That's what humans do. Jake's first trial came 3 days after they arrived. It was the trial of mind, and he had to play a complex strategy game against a Valorian champion. The game was played on a board that changed shape, with pieces that moved in ways that didn't make sense. Jake lost the first 3 rounds badly. The champion, an old Valorian named Master Chen, seemed disappointed. But Jake was studying the game, looking for patterns. In the 4th round, he did something unexpected. Instead of trying to win the traditional way, he made moves that seemed random. The board began changing in response to his choices, creating new paths. What are you doing? Master Chen asked. Making new rules, Jake said. The game changes based on how we play, right? So I'm playing in a way nobody's tried before. He didn't win, but he didn't lose either. The game ended in a draw, which apparently hadn't happened in 200 years. Master Chen laughed, a sound like bells ringing. Pass. The human passes by, showing us new thinking. Zara was watching from the audience. She was smiling that same smile from when they first met. Jake was beginning to really like that smile. That night, someone tried to break into Zara's rooms. Amy and the Valorian guard stopped them, but the attacker killed himself before he could be questioned. Amy brought the evidence to Jake and Captain Grant. This is getting dangerous, Amy said. Someone really wants her dead. Jake looked at the information Amy had gathered. We need to find out who's behind this. We? Captain Grant raised an eyebrow. Jake, you're not a soldier. No, Jake agreed. But I'm apparently a husband. And husbands protect their wives. He went to find Zara. She was standing in her room looking out at the stars. Are you all right? He asked. Yes, this is not first time someone has tried. Jake stood beside her. Zara, I need you to tell me everything. Who wants you dead? What are they afraid of? Zara looked at him for a long moment. Then she began to talk and Jake listened. By the time she finished, he understood. This wasn't just about marriage or alliances. This was about the future of her entire civilization. And somehow he had landed right in the middle of it. The trial of body was harder than Jake expected. He stood at the starting line of what looked like an obstacle course, but everything was wrong. The gravity was heavier here, making his legs feel like they were made of lead. The course stretched ahead of him, full of walls to climb, gaps to jump, and things that moved and shifted. "You have 1 hour," the judge announced. "Begin!" Jake took his first step and nearly fell. Walking in high gravity was like carrying a heavy backpack that kept getting heavier. He saw other competitors, all Valorian, moving smoothly through the course. They were built for this. He wasn't. The first wall was 3 times his height. He jumped and barely caught the top edge. His arms screamed as he pulled himself up. By the time he reached the top, he was breathing hard. The Valorians had already finished this section and were moving ahead. Jake looked at the next obstacle. It was a series of platforms that moved in patterns. In normal gravity, he could probably jump between them easily. Here, he would be lucky to make the first jump. He thought about giving up. Nobody would blame him. This was designed for aliens who were stronger and faster than humans. But then he saw Zara in the watching area. She wasn't cheering or shouting. She was just watching, her face calm. She believed he would find a way. Jake studied the platforms more carefully. They moved in a pattern, yes, but there was something else. The platforms were connected by thin cables that hung below them. Nobody was using the cables because jumping was faster. But Jake didn't need to be fast. He just needed to finish. He grabbed the first cable and started climbing along it hand over hand. It was slow. It was exhausting. But it worked. He moved from platform to platform using the cables instead of jumping. The crowd watching started making sounds, which he figured was their version of surprised. The next section was worse. He had to carry a heavy object across a narrow beam. In the high gravity, the object felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Jake made it halfway across, then had to stop. His muscles were shaking. He couldn't take another step. Then he remembered something from his engineering training. Leverage. He adjusted how he was holding the object, shifting the weight differently. It didn't make the object lighter, but it made it easier to balance. He took another step, then another. The Valorians had finished 20 minutes ago. Jake was still going, slow but steady. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His legs felt like rubber, but he kept moving. The final obstacle was a climbing wall that went straight up. Jake looked at it and almost laughed. There was no way. His arms had nothing left. "You can stop," the judge called out. "You have shown great effort. This is enough." But Jake thought about what Kira had told him. Valorians valued honor and keeping promises. He had promised to try his best. Stopping now, even with permission, felt wrong. He reached for the first handhold, then the next. Each movement was slow and painful. He couldn't feel his fingers anymore. His vision was getting blurry. But he climbed. Halfway up, he slipped. For a moment, he was falling. Then his hand caught a hold and he hung there gasping. The crowd had gone completely silent. Jake looked up. The top was still so far away. He looked down. The bottom was too far to survive the fall, even with the safety equipment. There was only one direction to go. He climbed. When he finally pulled himself over the top edge and collapsed on the platform, the crowd erupted in noise. It wasn't cheering exactly, but it was something. Respect, maybe. The judge came to him as he lay there trying to breathe. "You did not win," the judge said. "You were the slowest by far." "I know," Jake gasped, "but you did not quit. You changed your method when the traditional way did not work. You finished when you could have stopped with honor. This shows character. You pass." Jake wanted to say thank you, but he couldn't form words yet. Someone lifted him up. It was Zara. She was strong enough to carry him easily, even in the high gravity. "That was stupid," she said, but she was smiling. "But it was also brave." "Just trying to impress you," Jake managed to say. "It is working," she replied. Later, after he had recovered, they walked in the station's gardens again. It was becoming their special place, somewhere they could talk privately. "The trial of spirit is tomorrow," Zara said. "It is the hardest one. Harder than that death course?" Jake flexed his sore arms. "In different way. You must show that you understand Valorian values. You must speak before the council and explain why you are worthy. Many fail this trial because they try to impress with big words and false promises, but the council sees through lies. So I just tell the truth? Truth is good start," Zara said. "But you must also show that you understand what it means to be bonded to Valorian. Our culture will become part of your life. You cannot stay the same person you were before. Jake thought about this. To be honest, I'm not sure I want to stay the same person. That person was just going through the motions, fixing things in space because he didn't know what else to do with his life. And now I'm carrying heavy objects across beams in high gravity because an alien princess thinks I'm worth the trouble, Jake said. It's weird, but it's not boring, Zara laughed. It was the first time he had heard her really laugh, and it sounded like music. You are very strange, Jake Morrison. Is that good or bad? I have not decided yet. That night Ben found Jake in his room. His friend looked worried. I need to show you something, Ben said. I've been analyzing the data from the attacks on Zara. The timing, the methods used, everything. Jake, whoever is behind this has access to high-level information. It's someone close to the royal family. Vex, Jake said immediately. Probably, but I can't prove it yet. He's been very careful. But there's something else. Ben pulled up a display showing ship movements. These are human ships, small ones, not military. They've been meeting with certain Valorian ships in secret. I think there are humans working with whoever wants Zara dead. Why would humans want to hurt her? Because she wants to open relationships with other species, Ben said. There are humans who think we should stay isolated, who fear aliens. If they can make first contact go badly, if they can cause a war, then Earth will close its borders and stay afraid. Jake felt cold. We need to tell the captain. I already did. She's working on it. But Jake, you need to be careful tomorrow. If X is behind this, he won't want you to pass the trial. He might try something. The trial of spirit was held in a grand hall filled with important Valorians. Jake stood in the center, feeling very small. The council sat in a half-circle around him, their faces unreadable. Jake Morrison of Earth, the head counselor said, you have passed 2 trials through determination and creative thinking. Now you must show us your spirit. Tell us why you should be bonded to Princess Zara Elin. Jake had practiced a speech. He had memorized facts about Valorian culture and history. But standing there looking at all those alien faces, the practiced words felt wrong. I can't tell you I understand everything about your culture, Jake said. I've been here less than a week. I don't know all your customs or your history. But I do know what it feels like to see someone in danger and know you have to help them. That feeling doesn't need translation. He glanced at Zara, who was sitting to the side. When I pulled that pod to my ship, I didn't think about politics or alliances or anything complicated. I just thought that someone needed help and I could provide it. That's a human value, but I think it's a Valorian value too. You honor those who help others. You create bonds with people who save lives. Our species might look different, but we understand the same basic truth. Life is precious and protecting it matters. Pretty words, High Chancellor Vex said from his seat. But words are easy. How do we know you truly care for the princess? How do we know this is not some human plot? Jake looked directly at Vex. You don't. Just like I don't know if everyone here truly wants what's best for Zara. But I do know that someone has tried to kill her twice since we arrived at this station. And I know that I'm willing to stand between her and anyone who tries again. That's not politics. That's not a plot. That's just what you do for someone you care about. The hall went very quiet. Vex's face darkened, but before he could speak, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Guards rushed in, and one of them spoke urgently to the council. There has been an explosion, the guard announced, in the section where the human ship is docked. And there are reports of armed attackers heading toward this hall. Everything happened fast after that. Guards surrounded the council members. Zara rushed to Jake's side. Then the doors burst open and armed figures poured in. They were wearing masks, but Jake could tell some of them were human. Down, Amy's voice shouted. She and several other crew members from the Wanderer had been in the audience. They had their weapons out and were firing back at the attackers. Jake grabbed Zara's hand. We need to get out of here. This way, Zara said, pulling him toward a side door. Kira and Ben joined them, along with 2 loyal Valorian guards. They ran through corridors as explosions echoed behind them. Jake's heart was pounding. This wasn't a trial anymore. This was war. The stolen shuttle shook as they flew away from the station. Behind them, explosions lit up the darkness of space. Jake sat in the co-pilot seat, his hands gripping the controls while Zara piloted. Ben and Kira were in the back, trying to make sense of what had happened. We can't go back to the Wanderer, Amy said from the weapons station. They hit it hard. Captain Grant got most of the crew off, but the ship is damaged. Where can we go? Jake asked. Somewhere they will not expect, Zara said. She was focused on flying, her fingers moving quickly over controls that looked nothing like human technology. I know a place, an old outpost my family built long ago. It is abandoned now. They flew for hours, jumping through hyperspace twice to lose anyone following them. Jake had never been in a space battle before, and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every time he thought about what had happened, about how close they had come to dying, his heart raced. Finally, they reached the outpost. It was built into an asteroid, hidden and cold. Zara brought them inside a docking bay that barely had power. When they got out, their breath made clouds in the cold air. The life support is minimal, Zara said, but it will keep us alive while we plan. They gathered in a small room that might have been a command center once. Ben pulled out the data he had collected on his portable device. Okay, let's figure this out. Who's trying to kill us? Vex is involved, Zara said with certainty. Did you see his face when the attack started? He was not surprised. There were humans with the attackers, Amy added. I recognized their gear. Military grade, but old. Black market stuff. Jake thought about everything that had happened. Vex wants to stop you from changing things. The human attackers want to prevent good relations between our species. So they're working together. The question is how we prove it, Kira said. Without proof, we are just criminals running from justice. Vex has to be keeping records somewhere, Ben said. People like him, they document everything because they're proud of their plans. We need to find where he's been meeting with the human conspirators. Zara stood up and walked to a dusty computer terminal. She powered it on, and surprisingly, it still worked. I can access some government databases from here. It will take time, but I can search. While she worked, Jake noticed that Kira and Ben had moved to a corner and were talking quietly. They had been spending a lot of time together, and Jake suspected they were becoming more than just friends. It was nice to see something good happening in the middle of all this chaos. Amy came over to Jake. You know we might not survive this, right? If Vex has as much power as we think, he can send entire fleets after us. I know, Jake said. So why are you still here? You could have left when the fighting started. Could have found a way back to Earth. Jake looked across the room at Zara, who was focused on her work. Because running away isn't really my style. And because she's trying to do something important. She wants to bring her people into the bigger galaxy, to stop them from being afraid of everyone else. That's worth fighting for. You really care about her, don't you? Yeah, Jake admitted. I really do. It took 3 days, but Zara finally found what they needed. There is a facility, she said, pointing to coordinates on a map. It is registered as a storage depot, but the power usage is far too high for simple storage. And look at these ship movements. Vex's personal vessel has been there 4 times in the last month. That's where they're planning everything, Jake said. We need to get inside and get proof, Ben said. Video, documents, something solid that we can show to the Emperor. Getting in will be difficult, Zara said. The security will be heavy. Then we need a distraction, Amy said. She was smiling, the kind of smile that meant she had a dangerous plan. They spent the next day preparing. The plan was risky. Amy and Kira would create a diversion at one end of the facility, while Jake, Zara, and Ben snuck in the other side. If they could reach the main computer system, Ben could download everything they needed. The night before they left, Jake couldn't sleep. He found Zara standing on a viewing platform, looking out at the stars. The asteroid's rotation had brought them to a position where they could see a distant nebula, all purple and blue clouds of light. It's beautiful, Jake said, joining her. My mother used to tell me that nebulas are where new stars are born, Zara said, that all the light and heat comes from chaos and pressure. She said people are the same. We become who we really are when things are difficult. Your mother sounds wise. She died when I was young, illness that no one could cure. Zara was quiet for a moment. I think she would have liked you. Why? Because you see past what people are supposed to be and look at who they really are. You did not see a princess when you found me. You saw someone who needed help. Jake moved closer to her. And what do you see when you look at me? Zara turned to face him. In the dim light, her violet eyes seemed to glow. I see someone who is braver than he knows, someone who makes me laugh, someone who makes me want to be better than I am. Zara, I need to tell you something. When this started, I was just going along with it because it seemed like the right thing to do. But now, I don't want this to end after a year. I don't want an out. You are sure? Life bonded to me will not be easy. There will always be politics, always be danger. Yeah, but there will also be you, Jake said. And that makes it worth it. She kissed him then, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Her lips were cool and she tasted like something sweet he couldn't quite name. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling. We should probably survive tomorrow before we make big plans, Zara said. Probably, Jake agreed. But I wanted you to know how I feel, just in case. The next day, they put their plan into action. Amy and Kira went in first, stealing a transport and crashing it into the facility's west gate. Alarms started blaring immediately, and guards rushed toward the crash. Jake, Zara, and Ben approached. From the east, using the confusion to slip through a maintenance entrance that Zara had found in the facility's records. Inside, the corridors were cold and metallic. They moved quickly and quietly. Security room is 2 levels down, Zara whispered. They made it to a stairwell and started descending. Then they heard voices above them. Guards were coming. The 3 of them pressed against the wall, holding their breath. The guards passed without seeing them. That was too close, Ben muttered. The security room was locked, but Zara had codes that still worked. They slipped inside and found a treasure trove. Screens showed different parts of the facility. Computer terminals held files and communication logs. Start downloading, Jake told Ben. Everything you can. Ben plugged his device into the system and his fingers flew over the keyboard. There's so much here. Plans, payments, messages between Vex and some human named Richard Hayes. They've been planning this for months. Hayes, Amy's voice crackled in their earpieces. Wasn't he a military officer? Former Admiral Richard Hayes, Ben read. Discharged for extremist views. He's been organizing human separatist groups, people who don't want contact with aliens. How much longer? Jake asked nervously. 2 more minutes, Ben said, but they didn't have 2 minutes. The door burst open and soldiers poured in. These weren't regular guards. They wore heavy armor and carried serious weapons. And in the middle of them stood High Chancellor Vex. Princess Zara, Vex said calmly. You have been busy. Zara stepped forward, placing herself between Vex and her friends. It is over, Uncle. We have the proof of what you have done. Proof means nothing if no one lives to show it, Vex replied. He gestured to his soldiers. Kill them all. Everything seemed to slow down. The soldiers raised their weapons. Jake saw Zara reaching for the weapon on her belt, but she was too far away. Ben was still at the computer, trying desperately to finish the download. Then Jake did something stupid and brave. He grabbed Zara and pulled her down behind a console just as the weapons fired. Energy blasts hit the wall where they had been standing. Ben dove for cover on the other side. Got it, Ben shouted, holding up his device. The download is complete, but they were pinned down. There were too many soldiers and only one exit. Jake looked at Zara, and in her eyes he saw fear. Not for herself, but for him. The ventilation shaft, Zara whispered, pointing to a grate in the ceiling. We can get out that way. We'll never make it, Jake said. They'll shoot us the moment we move. Then we need a bigger distraction, Ben said. He pulled out a small device. Remember how I said the facility uses too much power? I can overload the generator from here. It will shut down everything, including the lights. We'll have maybe 30 seconds of darkness. Do it, Zara said. Ben typed commands into his device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights started flickering. Vex shouted orders to his soldiers, but it was too late. The entire facility went dark. Jake felt Zara grab his hand in the darkness. Move, she said. They ran. They ran through the dark corridors, stumbling and gasping. Behind them, they could hear Vex shouting and soldiers searching. The emergency lights flickered on, giving them just enough light to see. "This way," Zara said, pulling them through a door that led to a loading bay. Their stolen shuttle was on the other side of the facility, but there were other ships here. Smaller ones meant for quick trips. "Can you fly one of those?" Jake asked. "Yes, but we need Amy and Kira first." As if summoned, Amy's voice came through their earpieces. "We're pinned down at the west gate. Could use some help here." Zara made a decision. "Ben, take Jake to that ship." "Get it started. I will get our friends." "No way," Jake said. "I'm coming with you." "Jake, please." "I cannot focus on fighting if I'm worried about you getting hurt." "Then teach me to fight better," Jake said stubbornly. "But I'm not leaving you." Zara looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. "You are very difficult, you know this?" "I've been told." They ran together toward the west gate. The fighting there was intense. Amy and Kira were behind an overturned vehicle, shooting at soldiers who kept advancing. When Zara arrived, the tide turned immediately. She moved like water, fast and smooth, disarming soldiers and knocking them down without killing them. "About time," Amy said with a grin. "We were running out of ideas." "Where is Ben?" Kira asked, worried. "Safe. Getting us a ride out of here," Jake said. "Let's go." They fought their way back to the loading bay. Ben had one of the small ships powered up and ready. They piled in and Zara took the controls. The bay doors were closed, but she fired the ship's weapons and blasted through them. Alarms wailed as they escaped into space. Behind them, more ships launched to pursue. The chase was terrifying. Zara flew like she had been born to it, dodging and weaving between asteroids. Jake sat in the co-pilot seat, his hands gripping the armrest so hard they hurt. "Where are we going?"
Amy asked from the back. "To the Valorian homeworld," Zara said.
"To my father. He will listen to the truth." "If we can reach him before Vex's people stop us," Kira added. The jump to Valorian space took hours. They had to stop twice to avoid patrol ships. Finally, the homeworld appeared before them, a planet of blue oceans and silver cities. It was beautiful. "We will be intercepted as soon as we enter atmosphere," Zara warned. "Hold on." Ships surrounded them immediately. Voices demanded they surrender. Zara opened communication. "This is Princess Zara Ilin. I must speak with my father, the Emperor. It is urgent." There was a long pause. Then a different voice came through, older and powerful. "Daughter, you have been accused of treason. You must land and submit to arrest. Father, please. I have proof of a conspiracy. High Chancellor Vex has betrayed you. These are serious charges. Very well. You will be brought to the palace under guard, but if you are lying, the consequences will be severe." They were escorted down to the planet's surface. The palace was enormous, made of crystal and metal that seemed to grow from the ground itself. Guards met them at the landing pad, but they didn't attack. They simply formed an escort. Inside the palace, they were brought to a grand hall. The Emperor sat on a throne that seemed too big for one person. He looked older than Jake expected, tired. Beside him stood Vex, his face calm and confident. "My Emperor," Vex said smoothly. "The princess has clearly been influenced by these humans. They have filled her head with lies about me." "The only lies here are yours, Uncle," Zara said. She nodded to Ben, who stepped forward with his device. "Your Majesty," Ben said nervously. "I have evidence. Communication logs, payment records, everything showing that the High Chancellor has been working with human extremists to prevent peaceful contact between our species." He projected the information for everyone to see. Messages between Vex and Admiral Hayes, plans for the assassination attempts, payments to human mercenaries. It was all there, impossible to deny. The Emperor's face darkened as he read. "Is this true, Vex?" "The files are fabricated," Vex said, but his voice wasn't as steady now. "The humans are clever with technology. They could have made this." "Actually, we thought you might say that," Ben said. He pulled up another file. "This is time-stamped data from your personal ship's navigation system. It shows you at the facility where we found this evidence, at the exact times the messages were sent. Unless someone stole your ship and you didn't report it, this proves you were there." Vex's calm finally cracked. "You fool," he snarled at the Emperor. "You and your daughter would destroy our civilization by letting aliens contaminate our culture. We should remain pure, separate, superior. We should remain stagnant and afraid," Zara said. "That is what you really mean." Guards moved forward to arrest Vex, but he activated something on his wrist. A personal shield flared around him. "This is not over," he said. Then he ran, surprisingly fast for someone his age. "Stop him!" the Emperor commanded. The chase led through the palace corridors. Vex was heading for a private hangar bay. Jake and the others followed along with royal guards. When they reached the hangar, Vex was already at a small ship. Let him go, the Emperor said, arriving behind them. We know his allies now. We will find him. But Jake noticed something. Admiral Hayes was on that ship with Vex. He could see the human through the window. And the ship wasn't leaving. It was powering weapons. Get down! Jake shouted. The ship fired into the hangar and chaos erupted. Jake threw himself over Zara, protecting her with his body. He felt something burn across his shoulder, pain like fire. Then everything went dark. He woke up in a soft bed, sunlight streaming through a window. His shoulder was bandaged and didn't hurt too badly. Zara was sitting beside his bed, holding his hand. You are awake, she said softly. Did we win? Jake asked, his voice rough. Yes, the ship was destroyed before it could escape. Vex and Hayes died in the explosion. We found all their co-conspirators. It is over. Good. Jake tried to sit up and winced. How long was I out? 3 days. The medical team said you were very lucky. The energy blast could have killed you. Worth it to keep you safe. Zara smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. You are a fool, Jake Morrison. A brave, wonderful fool. Over the next week, Jake recovered. The crew of the Wanderer had arrived at the homeworld, their ship repaired with Valorian help. Captain Grant came to visit him with good news. Earth and the Valorian Empire are officially opening diplomatic relations, she told him. You're being called a hero back home. Both homes. I just did what felt right, Jake said. That's what makes you a hero, Grant replied. Finally, the day came when Jake could walk around on his own. The Emperor requested to see him and Zara together. They met him in a private garden, away from the formality of the throne room. Jake Morrison, the Emperor said. You saved my daughter's life multiple times. You exposed a traitor in my own family. You helped prevent a war between our peoples. I am grateful. I was just helping someone I care about, Jake said. Yes, and that brings me to a difficult matter. The Emperor looked at his daughter. Zara, the bond between you and this human began as a strategy, a way to protect yourself. But it has become something real. I can see that. So I give you a choice, daughter. The bond can be dissolved with full honors, or it can be made permanent through a proper marriage ceremony. There will be no shame either way. Zara looked at Jake. What do you want? I want what you want, Jake said. But if you're asking what I hope for, I hope you'll marry me. For real this time. You would leave Earth? Leave your old life behind? I would go anywhere as long as it's with you. Zara turned to her father. I choose marriage. I choose him. The wedding was held 2 weeks later. It combined human and Valorian traditions in ways that didn't always make sense but somehow worked. Ben served as Jake's best man while Kira stood with Zara. Half the guests were humans from the Wanderer and Earth Diplomatic Corps. The other half were Valorians from the royal court. Jake wore a suit that was part Earth formal, part Valorian royal. Zara wore a dress that seemed to be made of starlight. When they said their vows, Jake spoke in English and Zara translated to Valorian, so both peoples could understand. I promise to stand beside you, Jake said. Not behind you or in front of you, but beside you. I promise to listen when you're right and argue when I think you're wrong. I promise to protect what we're building together, this bridge between two worlds. Zara's vows were just as simple. I promise to choose you every day, not because tradition demands it, but because my heart wants it. I promise to learn your human ways and teach you mine. I promise that our love will be an example to both our peoples of what is possible. At the reception, people from two different worlds mingled awkwardly at first, then with growing comfort. Ben and Kira were inseparable now, already talking about cultural exchange programs. Amy had somehow ended up teaching Valorian guards Earth combat techniques, and they were all laughing together. Captain Grant found Jake on a balcony, looking out at the alien city below. Having second thoughts? Not even first thoughts, Jake said. This is exactly where I want to be. You know this is just the beginning, right? You and Zara, you're going to be representatives of this new alliance. There will be pressure, politics, people who resent what you represent. I know, but we'll handle it together. Grant smiled. You've changed, Jake. When you first came aboard the Wanderer, you were just going through the motions. Now look at you, married to an alien princess, helping to unite two civilizations. Funny how life works out. Zara found them and took Jake's hand. They want us for the traditional dance. I should warn you, I'm terrible at dancing, Jake said. Then I will teach you. Is that not what marriage is? Teaching each other? They went back inside together. The music was strange, a blend of Earth instruments and Valorian sounds, but somehow it worked. As they danced, Jake looked around at all the faces, human and Valorian, all watching with smiles. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of a new ship, a joint human-Valorian exploration vessel. Zara was beside him as co-captain. They had just finished mapping a new star system and were preparing for their next jump. Next coordinates locked in, Ben called from the science station. Kira worked beside him, their hands occasionally touching. All systems ready, Amy reported from tactical. Captain Grant commanded from the center seat. Take us out. But before they jumped, Zara turned to Jake. Do you ever regret it? That day you pulled my pod aboard? Jake pulled her close. I regret nothing. You pointed at me and said, "This is my husband," with that smile, and my life has been better every day since. Even the parts where people tried to kill us? Especially those parts. They made the quiet moments like this even better. She kissed him, and the bridge crew good-naturedly looked away. Gross, Amy muttered, but she was smiling. Adorable, Kira corrected. Everyone ready? Captain Grant asked, amused. When they confirmed, she gave the order. Jump! The ship leaped forward into hyperspace, carrying humans and Valorians together toward unknown stars. In his quarters later that night, Jake recorded a message to send back to Earth. Dear Mom and Dad, he said to the camera. I know it's been a while since my last message. Things have been busy. I'm married now to an amazing woman who happens to be an alien princess. We're exploring deep space together, building bridges between different worlds. I know it's not the life you imagined for me. It's not the life I imagined either, but it's perfect. I've learned that sometimes the best adventures are the ones you don't plan. Sometimes you just fix a solar panel, help someone in trouble, and end up changing your entire universe. I love you both. I'll write more when we reach the next system. Your son, Jake. He sent the message, then joined Zara in their shared quarters. She was looking at charts of unexplored space, planning their next mission. Ready for tomorrow? She asked. With you? Always. They stood together at the window, looking out at the stars. Two people from different worlds who had found something rare and precious. A partnership built on choice. Trust and love that crossed the boundaries of species and space itself. The adventure was just beginning.